Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to a brand new video on my YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about picking problem statements for your portfolio. Now, there's a lot to cover in this video, so without any further ado, let's get started. Now, there are three stages when it comes to writing down your case study. The first one is you pick a problem statement. And now this is something that can be given to you by someone. You read something online, you asked ChatGPT, or however you figured it out on your own. So that is the first step, that is to pick a problem statement. The second step is to validate it, okay? What that means is to understand, is this even a problem that is worth solving, right? And what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of all of that, right? And then you go ahead and solve it, right? So these are the three steps that you pretty much go through when you're solving a problem statement, right? Now, one of the most important things in this process is to understand is that a great designer knows to identify a problem that is worth solving. And what this means is to first of all identify that a problem even exists, and is it something that is worth solving, right? That is something that has to be built by you all on your own. And sometimes, of course, this takes practice and experience in order to build this intuition. But this is what differentiates good designers from average designers, right? Somebody who knows what not to solve and somebody knows what to solve. This is what differentiates them from everybody else. Identification of the problem is very important. Now, I have two playlists and I highly recommend you should check it out. And I'm going to be uploading more videos on case studies in the future weeks. So this will be updated. So make sure to check out this playlist as well. And you can check out this video on validating problem statements. I use ChatGPT to validate this. So once you pick a problem statement, you can validate it to ensure if it is worth solving or not. There's another playlist, which is UX design tutorial playlist. And if you see over here how to use ChatGPT to become 100x smarter. In this video, there's a small part where I show you how to identify or pick problem statements, right? So make sure to check this out. I'll keep updating these two playlists, so make sure to, follow them, right? Anyway, now let's break down the types of problem statements. Now, I've already again spoken about this in previous videos, but let's do a quick recap. Now, the first one is a new app concept, something that's brand new. You're going to design a new app for it. It could be a web app or a mobile app. The second type is redesigning an app, which is basically doing UI UX fixes. So you take something, you take an app that looks really ugly, which has, no features, really bad, and then you revamp it from the ground up, right? It is pretty much very similar to creating a new app, but in this case, you already have a lot of the baseline and benchmark set for you. You just have to build upon that. Then you have adding a new feature to an existing app. Of course, the scope of this is quite less compared to the other two. And then you have improving an existing feature, right? So you take an existing app, there are a bunch of features, you improve the experience of a certain feature for a particular purpose, right? And the last one is landing pages. Now, the reason it has so many emojis is because landing pages are the worst problem statements to ever work on. Do not work on landing pages. They do not demonstrate any sort of product thinking or problem solving. They only allow you to showcase your visual design skills. And if your landing page does not look good, then it does not serve any purpose whatsoever. And even if your landing page does look good, and from a user experience standpoint and from a product standpoint, it does not make sense, then the entire landing page has no value, right? So rather than wasting time on landing pages, please focus on the other four types of problem statements because they are more realistic. And there's a 99% chance is that if you get a job, it's the first four problem statements that you will actually work on. And very rarely in that 1% chance will you ever work on landing pages. So do not spend time on landing pages, right? And even when companies are recruiting you, they're not going to care about landing pages. Even if you have, they will give you a take-home assignment or a whiteboarding session for you to showcase your product thinking skills or some sort of another assignment as well, right? So they are going to test your skills, and it's better that you practice those skills in these four types of problem statements rather than on landing pages, because nobody wants you to design landing pages as a product designer, right? So just my 2 cents. Now, in this video, I'm going to be focusing more on this new app concept, although the similar principles apply to the other three as well. But in this case, I'm going to be focusing mainly on new app concepts. Now, I'm going to break down the new app concepts into, subcategories, into, smaller categories. Now, there are 5 categories over here, and this is what I have come up with. There's no, guideline or foundation. This is what made sense to me. So this is just my classification. So don't think these are rules set in stone, right? So the first one is business focused problem statements. The second one is user-focused problem statement. Now, what is the difference? I'm going to explain all of that a little bit later, but I'm just showing you the 5 categories. Then you have innovation-focused problem statements. Then you have backup problem statements. These are problem statements that I don't recommend anybody to work on, and probably work on it just as a backup and your main problem statement, which you will use to, showcase in your portfolio and get a job, is going to be very different. So backup is something that you probably do only to, pick up your skill set or, practice something on the side, and you should not depend on these backup problem statements to get a job. And the last one is feature focused. Now, feature focused is not a new app. Feature focused is about, solving a problem by introducing a feature. It is very similar to this one, which is adding a new feature or improving an existing feature, but I just decided to add that as well for sake of simplicity. All right. Now, the reason I'm splitting these things into 5 categories is because each of these problem statements has a unique judging criteria. What that means is, while the process to solve each of these problem statements is very similar, when you work on these problem statements, not every aspect of design needs to be given equal importance, right? Some need high visual design, some need high research, some have to be focused on solving business problems, some have to be focused on user problems, right? And that's what this entire video is all about, right? So let's understand what are these judging criteria. Now here again, I've split that into 5. There is no hard and fast rule, to be very honest. This is just for the sake of the video and, better understanding and classification. So the first one is visual design. This is your UI, UX, basic standard things. It has to look good, visual architecture, the common UI patterns, right UI patterns, all of those basic things. Then you have interaction design, which is more of 3D things, motion, stuff like that. Now, again, interaction is a part of visual design. Again, all of that combined together, UI design, UX design, and interaction design, all of that combined together is one set. But for the sake of this video, I'm just splitting that into 2. There's a reason why I'm doing it, and I will tell you what that is. Then you have research, and this is, all about understanding your users. Who exactly are you solving for? Users, identifying the problem statement, breaking it down into smaller pieces, all of that. And then you have solutions for users. Now, like I said, not all problem statements require you to solve everything for users. Some need more emphasis to users and some need more emphasis to the business, right? In the end, you are going to be solving for both, but not all problem statements are going to be for users. Some of them are going to be for the business. And of course, that is going to, help users as well. But, the weightage you give to users versus business is going to be different depending on the problem statement. And that's what I'm going to explain. So, with that being said, let's get started. I found this tweet or a thread where there are a bunch of these problem statements or basically ideas. And of course, this is, for startups or entrepreneurship, but I'm sure a lot of this can be applied for product design as well. And there were a lot of these, I went through all of them and I've sort of put them into categories. Basically, those 5 categories, I'm going to explain why I put them into each of those 5 categories with, very clear explanation. I've taken up probably around 90 of them and put them into categories. Some of them didn't really make sense to be added over there because some of them were like physical products. So that's not relevant for us. For us, we handle digital products. So that's what is important for us. So now let's jump into Figma and see how all of this is connected. So as you can see, I've got these 5 different sections. These are the 5 different types of problem statements that I spoke about. And I'm going to look into each one of them and I'm going to explain every single thing for you. All right. So the first one we're going to look at is a business focused problem statement, which means the objective of the problem statement is to mainly help the business rather than the users. Of course, it does make, a user's life also better. It obviously improves the experience. The main reason is to solve it for the business and not the user. And of course, what that basically means is that when you are being judged, people are going to be asking you about how did this improve things for the business, right? And I want to explain what that actually means. So let's take an example over here. The first one is an ancient languages learning app. Okay. Now I'm going to take all of those 5 judging criteria. I'm going to explain to you which needs maximum emphasis and which needs less emphasis. And what is it that people are going to question you during interviews? What are they going to look at? What are they going to critique, right? So here is the judging criteria. Now, the first one is visual design. Now, irrespective of the problem statement, visual design is always going to be top priority. It is always going to be top priority because that is the most important thing ever. And your product has to look good. Your designs and screens has to look good. And what does that mean? It means using the right UI patterns, using the right components, ensuring that the navigation makes sense, linear navigation, modal navigation. The user flows make absolute sense, right? Visual hierarchy, information architecture, things like that. Right? Then you have interaction design. Now I've called this animations and motion design. There's a specific reason why I've called it. I'll explain that later. Ideally, interaction design again is a part of visual design, but you don't have to focus too much on animations and motion design for, this sort of a problem statement, right? An ancient languages learning app, you don't have to focus too much on that. But of course, the visual design has to, be on point. Now then you have research is to identify problems and define the exact users and do all of those user stories and understand everything a little bit better. Next you have solution for users, and which basically is that in this case for these type of problem statements the solutions are quite standard in nature, right? The answer is pretty simple and it's also for a smaller user base. It's not for a very large set of users, it's for a small set of users. And then you have solutions for business. Okay, now like I said, every problem statement you are going to be solving for users and business. Now if you look at this, the things that are getting the maximum emphasis is visual design and solutions for business. And solution for users is getting less emphasis. Let's understand why. If you look at this, right, it's an ancient languages learning app. Now what that means is that it's an app for you to learn ancient languages. Now the solution to this is pretty straightforward. Right? If you take 5 language learning apps that exist out there and you find patterns, you have your answer, right? Now, it's not your job to identify what is the content, to be very honest, right? Your job is to design the app, and there's going to be a content management team who's going to handle the content, right? So you can come up with fake content or whatever it is, but then your main focus is going to be on solutions for business. Now, what does this mean? Because this is an ancient language learning app, the user base is actually very small, all right? And the solution is pretty standard as well, right? There are probably going to be some, activities for you to perform, some little bit of a gamification, things like that, right? Which means the most important thing that people are going to question you is about how are you going to design a solution that is going to help users build a habit of spending more time on the app and also coming back to the app again and again. That is more important in this problem statement than how you solve the problem of, helping people learn ancient languages, right? Because you want to help people learn ancient languages, you're going to come up with solutions. Maybe there are courses, maybe you do something like Duolingo, maybe you do something like any other app out there, right? That is not the most important part, right? And that's also not your job to sort of figure out. That's more of a product manager's job to figure out. But from a user experience standpoint and from a UI design standpoint, how are you going to go ahead and design an experience or design the product that's going to help people build a habit? Of course, there's going to be some amount of product thinking involved. This is, of course, related to human psychology, basic thing. But the solution that you sort of come up with over here, which is going to solve the problem for users, is not going to be that complicated and that hard. The solution is going to be pretty standard. But how does that solution help the business, first of all, generate more revenue, increase engagement and retention? Because for a product like this, which is very niche, it's very important that the solution is correct so that it meets the business needs, right? So that's why for problem statements like this, these two things get the maximum emphasis. Right? Now, I'm going to show you a couple of examples, right, of all from that list that I showed you over here, right? And there's a big list, and of course, I'm going to leave this project file for you to come and check it out, and you can go through all of these problem statements. I'm going to randomly go through a few, right? So niche online vintage thrift shop by the decade. Now, this is basically an e-commerce platform. Now, there is absolutely nothing complicated about this. It's an e-commerce platform, right? So for an e-commerce platform, the solution is pretty straightforward, right? You look at 10 e-commerce websites, you have your answer. You look at 10 e-commerce apps, you have your answer. Right? So what is important is how did you design the experience, and is your flows correct that helps the user to that helps the business, right? Are you going to increase average order value? Are you going to go ahead and provide nudges for the user? Are you going to ensure that there are less drop-offs? These are the things that are most important for problem statements like this, rather than coming up with a solution, right? You just have basic search, you basically have a home screen with popular or trending products, right? So the solution here is very simple and straightforward, right? Let's look at another one. Subscription box for niche hobbies, a noodle company, again, e-commerce, selling beautiful bindings of classic books. The solutions here are pretty straightforward, right? There's nothing complicated over here, all right? An online platform for renting out work equipment. Very straightforward. There's no rocket science here at all, right? A DIY robotic kits for teens, again, very straightforward, right? Smart pet toys, smart home gadget rental service. So there are a bunch of things over here that you can sort of look at, and the solutions for that are extremely simple and straightforward, right? Let's say online cooking class platform, right? Which means there's going to be a bunch of courses. It's basically like an edtech company. You have a homepage, you have a browse section, you have a search. very standard and straightforward. What is important is how are you going to upsell courses? How are you going to cater to different types of users, right? These are the things that are very much business focused. And that's why these problem statements are called business focused problem statements, right? Now, these problem statements are not bad problem statements. These are definitely good problem statements for you to work on. But I would highly recommend you to take this as the second option. And the first option is going and solving things for user-focused problem statement. Now, before I jump into this, I just want to say that there is going to be some amount of overlap between business-focused problem statements and user-focused problem statements. It's not like, there's a clear separation. They do overlap, but I'm trying to, split them as much as I can so that it's easier to understand. Now, I would obviously recommend everybody to focus on user-focused problem statements. But even if you pick business-focused problem statements, it's fine. It's just that the amount of focus that you give is going to be less here for the users. But if you look over here for user-focused problem statements, you're going to be spending a lot more time on research and solutions for users and less for business, right? So here you're obviously going to be focusing more on more parts of the design process or more skill sets, and you're going to be spending less over here, right? So because as you can see, there's only 2 green, here there's 3 green, but again, not a big deal. Try to pick something like this. If it's too hard or you want to start off with something, pick something from this list, and then when you feel more confident and you feel a lot stronger, pick a problem statement that's more complex, right? So let's understand here. So here, let's see. Create meal plans according to your habit. Now, this is a very good problem statement. The solution over here is not simple. The solution here is pretty complicated, right? Which means that you need to figure out a way to understand the user's habits and create a meal plan accordingly. Which means it's very important to understand users' behavior, understand who your target users are, understand the user journey, and it's going to take time to figure out the answers to this, right? This is where you're going to spend a lot of time doing research. Now, I'm not saying that when you write your case study, you need to dump all the research. I'm saying is that for you to come up with solutions, you have to do a lot of research and then just show what is relevant in the case study. You don't have to show everything that you do. In the end, in your case study, you need to be very crisp and specific about what were your objectives of research and what were your findings and insights, right? But to get those, you have to do a lot of work, right? And the solutions is going to be quite complicated for all of this. It's not standard and straightforward. And of course, you're going to be targeting a larger user base in this case. Most likely, I'm not saying that, all of them are going to have large user bases. Most of them are going to have, right? And in this case, when people are going to be reviewing your case study, they're going to be focusing more on the solution for the user of solving this problem rather than how this is going to impact the business, right? So let's try to understand this better. If I'm creating meal plans according to your habit, and let's say this is a free app, right? If this product solves the problem correctly, it is going to increase engagement and retention automatically, right? Because there is user intent. But if you're not solving the problem, if you're not giving users what they want, they're not going to use your product. Which means you need to come up with solutions that has to solve the problem in a very effective way. And let's look at a couple of examples, right? So create meal plans according to your habit. Buy the right plant based on location and climate, right? It's not very simple to solve this. Home cooked meal delivery, right? Here, the solution is pretty simple, but there are too many edge cases that can happen, right? There are too many, corner cases. There are too many user flows that come in, right? AI generated dance routine. Now, of course, you don't have to figure out the AI part, but how are you going to feed information to AI, right? That's quite important. Figuring out a solution for that. A Wikipedia for active digital nomad visa program. This is pretty cool, right? The solution is not quite simple over here. There might be multiple types of personas and everybody might be searching for different types of information. How do you make it easy for people to consume that information, right? A plant-based meal planning app. Now, I know there are a lot of planning apps already out there, but this is specific. And of course, you can do competitive analysis and figure out all the mistakes that are there, and you can bring that over here. Now, as you can see, all of these are focusing towards the user's solution. There is a big core user problem, and you are sort of solving that big user problem, right? And you're thinking less about the business in this case and thinking more about the users, right? So a custom workout, routine generator, and then an app connecting students with tutors in real time, right? So here, this is very important. There's a very big user problem, right? And you want to solve that here. app connecting farmers with local consumers. This is a user problem that exists, and all your solution and effort needs to go in figuring out how to solve for farmers and local consumers. You're going to think less about the business and less about metrics and more about coming up with a good solution, because an app to connect farmers with local consumers, the solution is going to be very complex. It's not really straightforward. So you have to spend a lot of time on researching and identifying the problems and the current behaviors and what actually needs to be fixed. What type of farmers are you catering to? What type of local consumers are you catering to? And then come up with a solution for that, right? So this is going to be pretty hard, right? And sports analytics app for amateur athletes. This is a phenomenal problem statement, right? This is great. You're not going to be thinking more about the business. You're going to be thinking about how can I help amateur athletes understand their performance? How can I help them become better? It could be, you could be a footballer, you could be, a weightlifter, you could be, a cricketer, whatever it is, doesn't matter which profession you're in, right? How can you sort of cater to a particular athlete and help them understand their performance and help them suggest changes or improve, right? Here again, you're focusing more on the user rather than what you're solving for the business, right? Now, most of these apps are probably going to have like a subscription model, and to use the app, you have to pay a monthly subscription and you're sorted, right? But if the solution is not good, people are not going to buy the subscription to your product, right? Which is why you need to focus a lot on understanding the problem statement, understanding the users, getting into so much clarity, and then coming up with a solution for it. And this is going to take time. So this is why I suggest people to always focus on this, because there is more product thinking that's involved. And of course, this is quite advanced and it's going to take some time. If this is your first problem statement, I probably would recommend you to pick something from here and not something from here. But again, you make a call, you decide what you want to do. But in essence, both of these categories are pretty good, and they should help you at least get a pretty decent job, if not a great job, right? So moving on, we have innovation focused problem statement. What does this mean? Now here, if you see over here, an example is a golf swing tracker. Now, these problem statements are quite unique and have a very tiny specific use case. And if you have to showcase your skills here, there are only two places where you can showcase your skills. Now, for example, a golf swing tracker. What is so complicated about this, right? It's a single feature, it's a single use case, and it's very, the scope is very limited over here. And the only way for you to showcase it, obviously, of course, it has to be, really good looking. And of course, interaction design comes into picture over here, right? You have to show how this works, you have to show videos, etc. All of these things, right? You're going to be focusing less on problem solving, right? You already have the solution over here. The solution is a golf swing tracker. So you probably figure out what are the technicalities and, what are the data points, or, what are the various terms that are there. And then you go ahead and present that in an effective way, right? So you're going to be doing less of research and understanding the problem statement, because a golf swing tracker is, pretty straightforward. There's nothing complicated about it. And obviously you're solving it for the users and not really for the business as such. And of course, the business might, do this as a subscription based app, and your entire emphasis goes into coming up with a solution. But again, here, right, the solution is already decided. It's a golf swing tracker. The use case and the outcome is very clear. So 90% of your effort goes into making it look good, designing the entire experience, right? So here are a couple more examples. A VR tourism based app for Google, based on Google Street Views, right? Now, all of these are solutions. None of these are problems. VR yoga studio. Here, the most important thing is the experience of the solution, right? And that's why I'm saying this is sort of like innovation focused problem statement. You're not focusing too much on problem solving. You're focusing more probably on the visuals and, showcasing the experience and the immersiveness. And again, this is something quite complicated again, and I would not recommend anybody to work on this if this is your first problem statement. Maybe your third or fourth problem statement makes sense, but do not work on problem statements like this as a beginner, because they don't showcase your product thinking skills, right? If you want to improve on your, your UI design, visual design, and, your visual skills, you can pick this up as a side project, but do not focus on this or expect that this problem statement is going to get you a job. It's not. Okay, next we have backup problem statements. Now, the reason I'm calling it backup is because you don't really want to work on this at all unless, you're doing it for fun, right? Now, the reason, for example, let's look over here, right? So create a meal plan app according to your mood. So this was habit, right? If we saw over here, this was creating meal plans according to habit. Now, this is a very good problem statement because this is actually a real problem or there's a real good use case for this, right? But things relating to mood is quite weird, right? This is sort of like solving for cravings, right? And you as a human know what you crave, and you feel like, craving something, you just eat it, right? So the reason I'm sort of saying that this is not recommended is because, first of all, there could be no demand for a product like this. You're solving a problem that doesn't really exist. All right. Now, I believe that this is not really a big fat problem, or, if there's no product that is solving this, then I don't think it's the end of the world. There are plenty of existing solutions. Now, I'm not saying that this problem statement has existing solutions. I'm saying that other problem statements may have already plenty of existing solutions. So unless you're doing something new, do not waste time, solving problems. And this is obviously a backup project. You should get the least emphasis in your portfolio. You can work on this if you want to practice something and, just, pick up some skills or grow your skills. But if you're expecting that this is going to get you an interview or a job, it will not, right? And let's look at a couple of examples, right? So creating meal plans according to your mood, interactive art that changes based on your mood, a job app that works like Tinder. I mean, this is not how job works, right? But this is a, sort of a fun and interactive, opportunity for you to go ahead and, grow your skills, right? But this isn't really solving a real problem. And this is not how, like integrating Tinder and job app, not really solving any problem. Right? Clothing service for traveling. This I would probably put it, in the first problem statement, but I think it's fine. Personalized wellness coaching app, mindfulness app. I mean, all of these already have, plenty and thousands of existing solutions. So don't even touch problem statements like this. They are, a big fat waste of time. And finally, we have feature-focused problem statements. Now, what this basically means is that there are a lot of problem statements and a lot of people think that they should make apps for it. But the point is nobody is going to download an app for it. And, it's better to integrate this as a feature in an existing app. So let me give you a couple of examples, right? So an app that shows what music others are listening to. Now, nobody in the world is going to download an app for this, right? And it's impossible for you to sort of go ahead and even, sell this to people, right? So rather, as a designer, try to incorporate this in an existing app. And when you do that, it's going to be a lot easier for people to adopt this feature. And so in this case, what is more important is research and the solution for, it looks like I made a mistake over here. Here we're going to be solving this more for the business rather than, users. So if you look at this, right, an app that shows what music others are listening to, a company like Spotify, for example, or, Apple Music would introduce this feature because they want to increase retention, they want to increase engagement, they want to do something, they have something in mind, right? And I'm just, taking an example over here, right? Now, of course, it does solve a user problem, right? It does, maybe people are asking for it and it's good for them, right? But the core focus is going to be to solve this for the business because the business has an objective. You're doing this mainly for the business and less for the users, right? And of course, here it's going to be more about understanding the research, understanding the problem statement, how this is going to impact everything, who are you solving for, etc. And visual design and interaction design is not going to get that much emphasis because, of course, if you're designing this for an app that already exists, you will use their design system, you will use their design language. So, you're not going to be innovating something new. So that's not going to be judged. And here are a couple of examples, right? So an AI app providing context to your bookmarks. So I'm not very sure why there would be a separate app for this. Maybe you could do this inside, like Twitter or Medium or whichever app this is. Of course, I just copy pasted this from that tweet. I don't really know what the context is, but I'm giving you an example. And 24/7 music stream of all the new AI songs. Again, this could be integrated into, another app. Like the most important question for you to ask yourself here is somebody going to download an app for this, right? And if the answer is no, then it has to go in as a feature. Now, maybe you could even improve the experience of an existing feature, or you could probably create your own feature, right? So every time you get a problem statement, make sure you sit down, validate it, understand what you're going to be judged on, and you can use this framework and example over here and, to sort of understand what you need to focus the max on. And of course, like I mentioned here, visual design is always the number one priority. If your app does not look good, then there is no point, no matter how amazing the solution is, it does not matter. So max emphasis on this, but then depending on the type of problem statements, other factors of the design process or, basically your other design skills are going to get emphasis, right? So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So till then, take care and bye-bye.